Hello, welcome. I am Marcia Saxton, researcher and project director of New Door, which is our health and fitness research project funded by the Department of Education, Health and Human Services, and Kaiser Permanente. This is a demonstration research project at the World Institute on Disability, and this is my colleague.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Blayman. I am the content manager and web designer for our project here at WID.
We are very excited to share with you our project. New Door is a collaborative health promotion project. We're working with many agencies at Ed Roberts campus and around the Bay Area, including the Bay Area Outreach Recreation Program, Access Dance Company, the University of California, Berkeley. We are producing resources for the disability community to improve our health through fitness and nutrition education. I want to mention our Get Fit, Get Moving fitness fair, which you can read more about on the WID website, but that's a component of the program that we're very excited about. The focus for this segment is on nutrition. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has identified the population of people with disabilities as food insecure. This means an increased risk for poor nutrition. The issues are really different for populations of disabled people around the world. Our focus is on the U.S. and Western populations who, because of the same access barriers to employment, education, and the mainstream life of the community, have challenges in getting access to appropriate nutrition. And because of the prevalence of fast food and junk food, which ends up being oddly accessible to this population, our population is eating McDonald's, Wendy's, and packages of food available instead of getting appropriate nutrition from produce, the good fats, the appropriate proteins, and so on. So we got interested in this, inspired in part by Michelle Obama's program that encourages the U.S. population to become more aware of fitness and nutrition needs. And we were able to get a grant from the Department of Education and then Health and Human Services and Kaiser to research this issue. Our initial idea was very simple: to collect recipes from the disability community to include in what we were calling a cookbook available on our website, sort of like a church community or a neighborhood pulling together recipes. And in our naivete, we were very educated, and it became part of our research to see what these recipes were revealing. And it kind of reminded me of my Aunt Alice cooking in the 1950s. The recipes that were submitted, many of them, very sweetly, people stepped up and sent in their recipes, and a lot of them were taking a can of this and a package of that, stirring it together and calling it a meal. And the ingredients included things like Cool Whip and green Jell-O. And, oh my God, this is not what we want to be promoting in our cookbook and our website about what we want to encourage people with disabilities to eat. It started to make more sense because what we're seeing in the Department of Education and the agricultural food studies and so on is showing high degrees of type 2 diabetes, for example, high blood pressure, cardiac problems, the kinds of things that can be sometimes considered preventable with good nutrition and appropriate fitness resource, which is not easy for the disability community. We're still on the beginning phases of that pioneering issue for this population. We began to conduct some research, including focus groups, and we brought together people from Ed Roberts campus, the Berkeley campus, and so on, conducting these groups, asking people, well, what are you eating? How do you figure out what you're going to eat today? And our worst fears were confirmed. This population of ages, all ages across from young adults and teens to seniors with disabilities and seniors with age-related impairments beginning to enter into this population, fast food is there. Fast food is accessible because there's no preparation and there's no cleanup, and fast food restaurants provide some degree of personal assistance. So, okay, this is our challenge. We reached out to professionals in the field, nutritionists, food studies scholars, and so on. We found one of our favorite mentors is Dr. Elaine Gerber at Montclair University in New York, who was one of the pioneers in this field. And some years back, through the Disability Studies Quarterly, produced a featured focus on food justice and food studies for the population of people with disabilities. And she's been one of our several mentors. We looked at disability-specific websites, many of whom have begun to recognize this emerging issue, and they'll have tips on nutritional advice for a specific population. For example, spinal cord injured people, people with rheumatoid arthritis, people with multiple sclerosis, and so on. And so we checked out around these websites and tried to impose our own nutritional standards that we've been developing. I want to just give you a few examples of some of the fun collaborations we've been able to find. One is from somebody named Cecily Rose, who was working at the Center for Independent Living, and she's a little person. And she gave us information about developing a tip sheet on the particular food access concerns for smaller people's bodies who have different dietary concerns, portion size, and so on. And it turns out that the BMI, body mass index, doesn't apply at all to this population. And so there's a lot to be learned about the specific impairment categories in relation to nutritional advice that's rampant in the culture and may not, in some cases, apply. Or in some cases it does. So we're learning about that. And with respect to spinal cord injury, for example, we found on a website some advice that when we ran it by one of our colleagues, Alex Guinness, who said, oh, it's not really that appropriate for my needs. And Alex is nutritionally aware. And so we did some individual research with specific populations. In Alex's case, he helped us develop a more appropriate and cogent set of tips for this population. I want to mention our connection to Bay Area Outreach and Recreation Program, which is primarily focused on fitness and sport, but has an interest as well in nutrition. And Carrie King, the fitness coordinator, hooked us up with an organization called Fresh Approach, which is this terrific community food source offering donated produce and user-friendly nutritional information. And so our idea on the website is to get people all around the country, and Elizabeth will tell you more about the connections around the world, to get people to approach local resources, to find convenient and accessible and discount food sources, to connect with sources of appropriate nutrition that our community really needs and is struggling to find. So the result is our website, and we're going to hear more about that in a moment. This is 3 years' worth of information that we're disseminating on the site around the world for free. Our main goal is to encourage the disability community to cook at home, which is much healthier and much more cost beneficial, affordable. We offer 50 recipes, and our criteria is the following: 5 or 6 or less ingredients, so not a huge long list of complicated instructions, healthy, easy, affordable recipes, and tasty. And we also offer this cadre of tip sheets, links to YouTube videos that show cooking for the populations in general, as well as some very specific to the disability community. Articles, scholarly as well as community-friendly blog connections and so on. We're wanting to encourage this population to seek help and learn more about planning, meal planning in advance, shopping tips, assistance in the kitchen, making your kitchen more accessible, because for many in this population, the kitchen that came with your apartment is not going to be reachable or workable. And so how to make, even if you can't afford to get an architect to come in and change the kitchen, you might be able to make it more workable with some adaptations. We also offer information for allies to our community, friends, family, care providers of various kinds, and to encourage agencies, Center for Independent Living, different community resources to promote educational and nutritional events to encourage the use of our website and other resources. We have a very strong motivation for our population to enjoy food. Food is so popular as a topic for bloggers and in the communities of all kinds. And socialization is so important because social isolation is a huge barrier, and food is a great way for people to connect. Thank you.
And now I'm just going to take you all through the website a little bit to give you an idea of how it works and what's available on there. So, let me shimmy on over this way. So we're going to start here on the home page. You can all see there's this home, and there is a picture of avocados on the front, so that's where you know we're at home. And I'll give you an example here of how the site works. So up here at the menu, there should be a drop-down. Normally this would go up across the top, but in the format right now it's going to drop down below us. So for the home, there are a couple different things you can do. You can go to our plan, or you can go to a word to our critics. So this is how the entire website works. We really want you to see what's available, so we try to make that clear with the drop down at the top. So I won't linger on home anymore. I will get to the fun stuff. So as Marcia said, we have about 50 recipes. Click on this, and if you click on recipes, it will bring you to this main page, and it talks about the types of recipes we have. And there are 50. We thought that was enough to get you started and interested. It's by no means a full-fledged cookbook. There's not a specific tab for lunch or for snacks, but we want to start you here and give you an idea so you can learn to cook a couple basic things in each of these places, like sides or dips and dressings, and then you can learn enough to be able to expand yourself and become a flexible cook. So I'm going to take you to a recipe to show you what they look like. Let's see, I'll go up to home again. And will it give me a menu? Yeah. Now, here we have dinner. Again, it describes why dinner is important and some tips on how to make a quick and easy dinner. Let's select this crock pot recipe, turkey breast. And as a side note, we try really hard to make it easy, so we have crock pot recipes, we have recipes that are microwave based, so even easier. And again, all of these recipes, or the vast majority of them, are tested and sent to us by people in the disability and senior communities, so we know that they're easy and they're tasty, so they're pre-tested for you, basically. Again, we have a picture, we have the title, and some details down here, but I just want to emphasize how easy this recipe is with the ingredients list. So it calls for 1 turkey breast, some apple cider or juice, and salt and pepper. You throw that into your crock pot and it's ready in 3 to 4 hours. That's how easy it is. It's as easy as going to get fast food, just about. You just have to wait a little bit longer. Let's go to tips for specific disabilities here in the menu. And let's go to kitchen tips for, accessible food and cooking tips for little people, because we just talked about the woman who helped us with this. Again, she was a little person herself, Cecily, and she was also a biostatistician. So when we got to the bit about BMI and how that works for people with disabilities, she was incredibly helpful. And I'll scroll down to the bottom and show you. It says a note on BMI, and then we have a big picture of the BMI chart with a no, and it's crossed out because it is not applicable. So again, that's an idea of one of the tip sheets. We have a lot of them. They're really fun to look through, and hopefully everyone can find something that applies to themselves. So that's a little bit about us and how we really want to just build a collective dinner table online where people of all different abilities can come together and eat and share a meal.
We have 2 minutes left. Are there any questions? We really are encouraging you to help us promote this because this is a fabulous resource and we're getting a really good reception from everybody who hears about this, but we want to reach the whole world. So please help us take the flyers, go to the website, download your additional information and share it with the world and send it out on social media.
I know in the blindness community, we've become increasingly distressed at the lack of easily accessible and usable kitchen appliances, microwaves, cooktops, stoves, crock pots, you name it, controls that are increasingly hard to use. I'm wondering if there's been any kind of a opportunity to interface with manufacturers to say, we're doing this kind of work, but it would be cool if you guys could, do a little better job with your appliances.
Yeah, well, that would be our future funding project. We didn't have the resources to do that, but we do have links to many sources of adapted equipment for the widest range we could find of impairment categories, devices to use in the kitchen. But you're right, that's one of the next frontiers, is to have the crock pot have an accessible dial and so on. Good point.
Excellent, thank you.
Great website, very exciting. Couple questions. Do you talk at all about the slow food movement or farmers markets and how to access farmers markets or even grow, your own small fruits and vegetables and such?
Mm-hmm.
Have you explored that?
Do you wanna? Oh, okay. So we do have one tip sheet on that right now, and it's by no means fully extensive. It's definitely something we'd like to continue looking into, and we have a couple external links on growing food, on using your own compost bin, on using community gardens. So we have touched on that, but we haven't delved super deeply into it.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.